Namaste, and welcome to our continuing series, Explorations in Savitri, with our beloved Alokbhai. We are in Book 4, the Book of Birth and Quest, Canto 3, the Call to the Quest, and the page number is 371. The voice is still speaking. But dim in human hearts the ascending fire, the invisible grandeur sits unworshipped there. Man sees the highest in a limiting form, or looks upon a person, hears a name. He turns for little gains to ignorant powers, or kindles his altar lights to a demon face. He loves the ignorance fathering his pain. A spell is laid upon his glorious strengths. He has lost the inner voice that led his thoughts, and masking the oracular tripod seat, a specious idol fills the marble shrine. We should stop here because you have a lot to cover.
So so the voice is Akashvani. is speaking to Ashpati, and its purpose is to remind him that your daughter has been born with a certain purpose. So she's not just another girl who has to grow up and gets married and leads a life as what most people lead. So it's awakening him to this mission so beautifully that look at humanity, what it is capable of and where it is going and what it is right now doing. And describing at once the possibility that is within us. Almighty powers are shut in nature cells. This transient earthly being, if he so wills, can fill these orbs with the immortal sight. He who now stares at this ignorant world. So at this point of time, we look upon the world with the eyes of ignorance. So born cataract. So we can look upon this world anew, with a new and vaster and deeper and truer perspective and a deeper, vaster and truer way of action upon it. So it's continuing, and the last few lines we had read last time was earth and its aspiration. So this is something very interesting, that while man is the instrument through which the grand divine design has to be accomplished, by the crossover has to take place. Yet the yoga is not beginning with man, nor will it end with man. It begins with earth. Earth is born for yoga, and she is a goddess, he describes, in a net of transience caught. And it will end, if we can use the word, by going beyond man, or rather it will change from an unconscious, subconscious yoga of earth to a conscious yoga, which will be done by the new beings who will only manifest the divinity more and more, with man as the middle term. But there is a problem, there is a but. What is the but? But dim in human hearts the ascending fire. It needs a persistent aspiration. But Mother says in volume 3, there is a very interesting conversation where she says, do not imagine that you can do the integral yoga as 5 minutes of aspiration and then I can just lead my life just as anyone else. This aspiration has to grow more and more and more and more by various means. But dim in human hearts the ascending fire, the invisible grandeur sits unworshipped there. The one divinity which is within us, that we do not worship while we turn to all kinds of beings. Man sees the highest in a limiting form, or looks upon a person, hears a name. He cannot yet conceptualize the universality of the divine presence which is within. He wants to reduce him into a cult, a creed, a limited religion with a limited set of dogmas, beliefs. So he reduces the divinity into a limiting form. And at the same time, a person and a name, and without really going into the depths, into the truth of what this person and the name represents, he reduces him also to a way to satisfy all kinds of his
But we
desires.
do find in the world, someone has a little bit of power, and masses are drawn
Masses
to
are
him.
drawn. That is the vital kind of charm. Sri Aurobindo spoke of 5 signs of this coming of the supermind. One of them will be rising of men with great vital power, with hold over the masses. So wherever you see mass phenomenon, one must be very careful. Very often we paradoxically tend to go where there are masses. So whereas you'll always find that in something like Sri Aurobindo's movement, you won't have masses. Even for that matter, Swami Vivekananda's movement, Sri Ramakrishna, you won't find that kind of mass movement. But there are mass movements which are drawn by the power of the vital, which holds human beings, controls them by a kind of vital charm.
And often a force controlling those people.
So that's what it comes to that. And so therefore he says, he turns for little gains to ignorant powers. What man wants is not transformation and giving up his desired self and conquering the ego. He wants to say, give me something which is more tangible, which will help me lead my life in a more grander way. That's what he wants. But one of the things that the divine teaches us as we go along the path is get rid of the desired self. You know that famous story of Sahanadi, that I want to eat, I have a, what, she starts writing like this, how people corresponded. You know what, I feel like eating lobsters and prawns and fish and egg and whatnot. So Sri Aurobindo writes, eat your desire. Rather than sanctioning. But again, it's not an ascetic thing. There is somebody whom the mother saw from the balcony seeing hundreds and hundreds of people. Suddenly she asked Pavitrada to call this man. And Joseph, who was judo master.
Yes.
He was himself telling me that, he was suffering from a disease. He had a nervous breakdown because he was during the World War. And she asked for him. So he came and then she sent message through Pavitrada. She told him that you need to eat 1 egg every day because you seem to be having a nervous collapse. You need strength. And then she ensured through Pavitrada that he was actually getting it and eating it. So not just he passed an order but implemented it. So it was not that you renounce because you have to give an image of having renounced something. But when we are moved by desired self, that's when the divine would say this. But we are driven to those beings and powers which are ignorant, but they will give us little gains. Or kindles his altar lights to a demon face. That of course is well known. Now demon face is where people are drawn for power. Mostly the sign is that there is a cult which is built around hardness with rigid dogmas, and it's a cult of power, ruthless cult. And there is not the finer feelings of heart. So Sri Aurobindo often in Descent to Night, which we are reading in with Desiree elderly people, so he describes so beautifully how to distinguish. So wherever there are godlike things, godlike energy, you will feel love, care, tenderness, which are feelings, affection, which come from the psychic. Whereas wherever there is a demonic cult, you will see hardness, rigidity, cruelty, lack of kindness, lack of pity. Those are the demonic qualities. And man often goes to these such beings because it is driven by the lust for power. And that is why you will see Titans, they worship Shiva in a Rudra form. Why? Because that's where they say, there is a power greater than mine.
Or the Black Mass, where the cross is upside down.
Yeah.
We've seen so much of this. And lately it's...
Does it still go on, or I thought
it still goes on. It's an underground thing, but it's very powerful.
And Sri Aurobindo speaks of it in that famous poem, A God's Labor.
Yes.
I've heard the Black Mass bell, where there is the world of falsehood. Yes. So that's humanity. He loves the ignorance, fathering his pain. So it reminds me of a prayer of the mother, where she describes human life and she says, to live for the To love thee is to breathe eternity, is to be free, it is to live in eternity, infinity. And then she says, how strange is the life of ignorance, where men flee away from the very thing which will free them from pain, and choose to go through this ordinary school of existence composed almost entirely of suffering. So human beings don't make a conscious choice for that. They choose this. So he loves the ignorance, fathering his pain, and there is a reason to that also. A spell is laid upon his glorious strengths. He has lost the inner voice that led his thoughts, and masking the oracular tripod seat, a specious idol fills the marble shrine. So, this a spell is laid upon his glorious strengths. There is an Upanishad, it's known as Sri Aurobindo Upanishad. Sri Aurobindo did not use this name, Sri Aurobindo Upanishad, but it is printed now, published as Sri Aurobindo Upanishad. They are a series of, Sanskrit hymns, mantras actually. And he says very beautifully, what is ignorance? So he says, ignorance is to say, I am weak, I am useless, I am incapable. So this is ignorance, because it means I don't know my divinity. And that's why one of the methods in certain practices of yoga is to say, I am divine and all are divine. In the deepest essence, we are all divine. We have just forgotten it. So this is how we live. A spell is laid upon his glorious strengths. What can we do? What can I do? At one place, Sri Aurobindo says, if you're fight if you must. If your hands are tied, fight with your voice. If your speech is gagged, then fight with your heart's aspiration.
And on the other hand, Mother tells us that we are nothing and we know nothing.
Yes.
We have to remember that.
Without this presence, we are nobody and nothing.
Exactly.
With this presence,
exactly.
And both are needed. In human nature, as you beautifully said, there are two ways of looking at the same thing. We are talking of negative and positive. So, Sri Ramakrishna's, one day he was sitting with people and they asked, what is Brahman? So, he asked one of the disciples, I think it was Nag Mahashay, very devoted, full of humility, full of faith and love. So, he asked, tell me, who are you? Are you Brahman? So, he says, Master, I am nothing. I am nothing. I am really nothing. So he says, very good. Just then, Vivekananda enters. He says, see what he will reply now. So he asked him, so Naren, can you tell us something about Brahman? So Vivekananda stands as a towering figure and says, I am Brahman. Oh. Both are speaking truth.
Yes. Yes.
Both are needed in the same person simultaneously.
Yes.
Seeming opposites. That prayer of Mother, I am nothing, I can do nothing. But with the divine, everything is possible.
Yes.
So this one thing. So the oracular tripod seat, which is the intuition, the flame of intuition which burns within us in the altar of the heart. So that is masked, and we have forgotten that, and we lead our life.
And this is taken from the Greek.
Yes.
The oracle
Yeah.
was usually a female.
Yeah. Delphi was the most common.
Yes, sitting on a tripod
Yes.
seat, and she would go into a trance, and the intuitive rays would come down, and she would tell them how it was. And then she would often faint.
Yes. And
then
there was
come
the
back.
famous story of declaring Socrates is the wisest man, then that goes with nothing.
Yes.
So Socrates says, how can the oracle say that I am the wisest when the fact is I know nothing?
Yeah.
And then he discovers that is why it has declared I am the wisest. Nobody seems to know anything, but I know that I know nothing. This is Chotnarayanji used to tell this story several times with all his mirch masala, added to it, spice and chutney. That after that he started going here, there, everywhere, metaphysics professor. That's how he would say. That BBC came saying you are the wisest man declared by the oracle of Delphi, and he said, I don't know, let me find out. He will meet a professor in microbiology, in physics, in history, and keep asking questions. That was his method of inquiry. Till finally they will say, get irritated by his question and say, well, I don't know. He say, oh, you don't know. So at the end he says, nobody knows the ultimate answer, but I know that I don't know. So this is he has forgotten this intuitive ray which, comes inside. And the special ideal is the ideal of the ego, which says, I know everything. So hallmark of ignorance is this, BIS standard, that I know everything. I don't need to know or ask anything from anyone. The great illusion wraps him in its veils. The soul's deep intimations come in vain. It's not that the divine intuition doesn't inspire us, but we don't heed. We are sleeping comfortably in our ignorance. In vain is the unending line of seers, because their work is still not accomplished.
What a poignant line.
Yeah, what a poignant line. The sages ponder in unsubstantial light. It's still not the fullness of the supramental truth. The poets lend their voice to outward dreams. A homeless fire inspires the prophet tongues. So this is the background of man's malady. So what is it continues for some more time. Heaven's flaming lights descend and back return, because the man is not ready. So they come, they wake up, they inspire human beings, but after a while, either he is filled with his own arrogance, whereas it's the light which is working in him, but he thinks it's me. And that has been the downfall of many beings. And so it has to return back.
And in book 1, the fire has come and touched men's hearts and gone. A few have caught flame and risen to a greater height.
Yes. The luminous eye approaches and retires. Eternity speaks, none understands its word. This is what applies to Sri Aurobindo. So people have this habit of saying Sri Aurobindo is difficult, so let me not read it. This is not a solution. Often in All India magazine when I take out, the moment there are writings of Sri Aurobindo, I hear this complaint that, Sri Aurobindo is difficult, give only mother's writings. I said, if Sri Aurobindo is difficult, then all the more reason that we should give more of Sri Aurobindo, so that people get used to and at some point begin to, open and understand. But eternity speaks, none understands its words.
And Wednesdays and Thursdays, Ranga has opened Life Divine to me.
Wonderful.
He really has opened it.
Absolutely. I mean, if it's difficult, it's Lord's words, it's His book, and we should read it.
Absolutely.
And this is not enough. Eternity speaks, none understands its word, fate is unwilling, and the abyss denies. So even if we say, okay, we want to take the call and move on the path, there is the abyss which will put all kinds of hurdles. People ask the mother, when we are progressing and we have a great urge, why do we suddenly have a problem and suffer from maybe an accident or something? She says, yes, because the moment you have this urge, there are forces that want to pull you back. So they are there, the abyss denies, and fate is unwilling. But this is the challenge thrown at us.
Maybe you could say a little bit about Mother's comment, because it was so powerful. Men, countries, continents. The choice is imperative. Truth or the abyss.
So this is the 1970 message.
Yes.
70 or 71, one of them. Where she gives this message. So she was asked, what does it mean? Because some disciples got frightened.
And they asked her to tone it down.
Yeah, initially. And they got frightened because suddenly people realize that what choice we are making. So she describes that if you look at the world today, there is lot of insincerity in international dealings, hypocrisy, etc.
Yes.
And then she says people are driven by the lust for money and greed for power. These two things I call the abyss.
Yes.
Lust for money and the greed for power. Then she says, last this comment, but for those who have taken to walk the path of truth, they have nothing to fear.
Yes.
Those who have faith, they have nothing to fear because they are carried. So she says, be careful. I mean, don't think that just because you are not fully sincere, you are going to the abyss. No, that takes time. But lust for money and greed for power, this is what she defined as the abyss. So wherever we see that, and that's why she said, political world, this was given to, men, countries, continents. So, those great leaders and political, it has political undertones to it.
Yes.
Countries, continents. So she says that you must know, you are making a choice. And she said, two things which will be the most difficult to change will be politics and the financial world. Because it is built on falsehood. It's built on greed for money. It's built on lust for power. So there is a lot of lie which goes on in those worlds. Just as he said, the field of psychology, education and health will be the first to respond in terms of the areas which will respond to the new light, which we see happening. The inconscient's mindless waters block all done. This inconscient's mindless waters. If you look at it, looks a strange line. What waters? So this is straight Vedic imagery, also used in the Puranas. So the last of the Asuras that Indra fights, if you take the Puranic stories, in the Vedas is described as the ocean above and the ocean below. So the ocean below is Aprakritim Salilam. There is no nature, but there is no place where there is no nature, but it's like dark, completely absorbed within itself. So it's described as an ocean. So waters is a Vedic imagery. Very often in dreams we'll see ocean-like waters or a sea full of crocodiles and God knows. That is the world sea, which is driven by the inconscient energy from below. Sahanadi sees a dream like that, where she says she saw a dream where she sees Mother and Sri Aurobindo are on the other side and she has to cross this river, which is in spate and full of these dark creatures. And they call her, they say, come. Now she is feeling afraid. Should she take a jump because they will eat me up? So she is afraid. Then after some time she is so much enamored by the fact that they are there that she jumps. And as she jumps and she starts swimming, she suddenly notices that these creatures and beasts start going away. Because there is another power which is acting. So they do nothing. They just, are there to frighten. So they start going away. And then suddenly she sees that the whole scene ends and there is Mother and Sri Aurobindo. So the leap that we have to take is the leap of faith. This step we have to take. But the moment we take into that, even the inconscient splits and gives way to the light. So it's a very, he also, Chutnarayan had seen a similar dream where he sees that, there is a shout going on, Jarasandh has come, Jarasandh has come. And everybody is panicking and running away. So Jarasandh is the one of the demonic kings in Mahabharata legend, and he was born out of a strange conjunction. He is Jarasandh. The thighs have been joined artificially. So he is a junction of the human and the devil, like something like Lucifer. So you can't kill him, and he is doing a strange kind of yagna with all kinds of things. He is finally killed by Bhima, and Shri Krishna gives him the clue that when you tear his body and throw it apart, put Shiva's mound in between. He is also a worshipper of Shiva because Rudra power. So he hears Jarasandh has come, Jarasandh has come. So everybody is running. Where is Krishna? Where is Krishna? And suddenly he sees that there is a river and across it there is Mother and Sri Aurobindo. And the moment he sees them, he is so comforted. And then next moment he is at their feet. I mean, the whole scene changes and it's all beautiful and blissful. So see, even the demon helps us sometimes to drive towards the divine. This one part of it. He pushes us from behind. But this fear which is so dangerous, which is being pointed out here, the abyss which is gaping, but ultimately there is grace, and that he will come to a little later. So this is also the story, as I said, of Vritrasur. The last battle Indra has to fight is with this demon called Asura called Vritrasur. So he tears. So he is again an Asura of the Vedas, but is there in this legend. So what has Vritrasur done? He is described as a huge serpent who surrounds the whole city and sieges is as if underwater. That is how it is described. So mindless waters. block all things down. So he used to fight with that, famous weapon called Vajra. Only a little lifted his mind screen. The wise who see but one half of truth. The strong climb hardly to a low-peaked height. The hearts that yearn are given 1 hour to love, because we cannot hold that flame. That's why in Savitri, in the beginning, book 1, Canto 2, you see a long description of Savitri's personality. And then it starts with love came to her, hiding the shadow death. Here he might find his perfect shrine. Then there is a long description of who Savitri is. And then it ends again with love. Here he met his own eternity. Because she is so, in her he met his own eternity. Because she is so vast, so generous, giving constantly, without asking anything in return. So he says here, that test of the burning Godhead in our parts, she could hold that flame of love. But otherwise, the hearts that are given 1 hour, who yearn for love, 1 hour. Beyond it, the flame turns into something else. His tale half told, falters the secret bard. So bards were those, who sang of great exploits of heroes, and, like in Ramayana you have Love Kush as the bard, and we have this tradition in India. In Greece this tradition was there. So we see many Greek and Vedic and Egyptian legends coming together in Sri Aurobindo's writings. So now we hardly have bards, but as a child I have seen, people who would come and sing you the tale of Ramayana or some Savitri Satyavan story. I have heard like that. The gods are still too few in mortal forms. The gods are there in human forms, but very few. So yes. So now this is the problem. What is the answer? Comes so beautiful, please.
The voice withdrew into its hidden skies, but like a shining answer from the gods, approached through sun-bright spaces, Savitri, advancing amid tall heaven-pillaring trees, apparelled in her flickering colored robe, she seemed burning towards the eternal realms, a bright moved torch of incense and of flame, that from the sky-roofed temple soil of earth a pilgrim hand lifts in an invisible shrine.
So it is so powerful. See, sometimes a line derives its significance from all the lines that have gone before.
Yes.
Like in her, he met his own eternity.
Yes.
Now, its power comes from all that has been described. Here again, Sri Aurobindo is describing Savitri. But the power comes from all that, force-compelled, fate-driven, earth-born race. This is the condition of the earth, and this is the situation. The gods are still too few in human forms. Something needs to be done. There is a sense of pressing urgency. So what is to be done? So comes the, the voice withdrew into its hidden skies. So it's a Akashvani which withdraws, ethereal voice. But like a shining answer from the gods, approach through sun-bright spaces, Savitri. She is the answer. She is the hope. So here comes the avataric side, that it is she who will redeem. Human effort before the abyss, the fate and all these powers. But she has come to redeem earth and humanity. Here there is a hint of that. Sun-bright spaces. So there is at once, again, in the Vedas you use an image that is at once physical and perfectly applies also to the spiritual. But Sri Aurobindo is no more using archaic images of cows and horses, because that image was suitable that time. So he is using a more modern image, and look at the perfection. Sun-bright spaces applies to the supramental. But equally, she is entering the palace from outside. So from sun-bright spaces, like an answer from the gods, came Savitri. Then he describes again in a similar way. Advancing amid tall heaven-pillaring trees, as if there are gods around and she is moving, through them. Apparelled in her flickering colored robe, she seemed burning towards the eternal realms. So on one side, he is describing that she is bright in every sense, and she carries a flame that is burning towards the eternal seat. She does not belong to the flock where, though human in appearance, were dim in human hearts the ascending fire. I mean, what kind of fire Mother and Sri Aurobindo embodied? When I look at it, at one place Sri Aurobindo says to one of the disciples, do you think the mother or myself were busy searching for flesh pots in Egypt to earn some, gold? And he says that it has taken long for us to build this path. There is a whole vision which the mother sees that, Sri Aurobindo is going, there is a train and it's going to icy peaks, and there comes a final peak where there is now nobody left except Sri Aurobindo and a couple of more people, and the train wouldn't go further. So Sri Aurobindo for a while stays there, and then he says, no, I must go further, and then he starts walking. So he has gone beyond where nobody has ever gone. And when you look at it, for what? For what purpose? So that we don't even care to read his works. Sometimes I wonder, it's not for this.
And many say that the earth and man were not ready for Mother and Sri Aurobindo. But don't you think that Mother and Sri Aurobindo knew best?
Yes, and also, though it is true that, Sri Aurobindo said world is not ready, but there is a complementary truth. He also said you will have to make them ready. So what is needed from our side is to open to them. So one part is that we are not ready. The second is we don't open. We are happy with our unreadiness. And we are happy by, complaining and about the whole world. But the thing to be done is not complain or sit quiet and say we are not ready, what can we do, helpless creatures. But to open more and more. The least we can do is to read. I say that this is the minimum. These words are not just meant for keeping in the... scripture is one of the 4 aids to the sadhana. One may not be able to meditate, one may not have that flaming faith, devotion. These are gifts of grace, utsaha of the disciple. But this is there, this is the minimum. So
but we can also grow in beauty. We can grow with the flowers.
So many
We can
ways,
grow with
so
music.
many doors they have opened. Flowers, if you are interested in nature, you can do the divine darshan in that. I know of a friend, and I think he listens to these talks, and he was recently telling me that he had no interest in flowers. And one day, suddenly, roses started coming in his dreams. See, he has very intuitive, clairvoyant dreams. Very Vedic dreams, even of elephants or like that. He started seeing roses coming to him, and he didn't know what it means. So one day he went to a place to pick up some flowers and suddenly found that there was a whole nursery of roses. He said, oh, I want to pick up all the roses because they are coming in my dream. And a rose which had come in his dream, he saw it there. And then he has all varieties of roses. Green rose, recently he was showing, which I didn't know existed. And of course, white and red and maroon and pink and orange and yellow and every other shade you can imagine. So I told him that, we were reading a line from Savitri, where Savitri, penultimate stage of yoga, book 7, Canto 7, last few lines, where she says, she was the burning in the splendor, she was the burning of the splendor of rose. So I said, don't you see the Divine Mother was coming to you and giving darshan as rose? He said, wow, this is wonderful. I said, she was coming to you, but through the image of the rose. So if you want to follow that path, if you are tuned, music, she has given Mother's music, pictures, she has given so many types of aid and help. And of course, the writings where every possible method, difficulty, challenges have been described, and the penultimate Savitri. And still, if we say that, we are not ready, I think... we don't have to look at the world and what's going on there. They are there and they are capable
That's
of.
the key, isn't it?
Yeah.
We have to be concerned only
This growth.
with our progress.
Yes,
and
because
the opening.
and this will help humanity progress. Because if there are 100 people who are radiating with that light, that's what is needed.
Yes.
If you keep showing darkness, yes, it is there. Whether it is greater, lesser, or this or that, this can go on debate. We can go on debating about the shades of grey, but light is only one. We don't debate over the white light when it comes and scatters all greyness. So this is the task given to us, and Savitri is the answer to that. And there is a beautiful description which goes on: a bright moved torch of incense and of flame. And she speaks of this in one of her prayers. My prayer rises to thee like the incense of the pure perfumes of India. Describes her prayer like that. So incense is the prayer and the flame is the aspiration. So both of them are there. It's very interesting because flame is burning aspiration. It's right there and spreading light. And incense is climbing upwards. It's offered to the divine being. So incense and prayer and flame.
And
prayer
your
and
friend with the rose, ask him what rose he saw, because there's only one rose that Mother named love from the divine. All the others are love for the divine.
Yes.
in
He
some
has
aspect.
he has seen that also.
He's
He has seen love from the divine. He has seen tender love for the divine, which the mother named as the a rose, which is such a beautiful flower. She has said, you don't find such a beauty even in heaven. Tender love for the divine. He has seen love of the divine, which you were mentioning, and of course surrender, every kind of rose. So he used to send every morning, still sends in the morning the picture of a rose from his garden with Jaima. I said, please mention also the name and significance. He said, oh, this is a good idea. So to many of his friends he sends. So now he sends it with the name and significance. So many openings. Yeah, that's it. His name justifies his capacity for seeing visions. All kinds of visions. Like that, Mother Shri Aurobindo came into his life. It's an interesting story. The way he turned. I mean, every one of us. A bright moved torch of incense and of flame, that from the sky-roofed temple soil of earth, a pilgrim hand lifts in an invisible shrine. What a wonderful. The whole human body has become like a temple shrine. But within it, there is a flame which is burning and lifted up beyond. There is a torch of flame. You don't know what's going on inside the shrine, but you can see the flame which is coming out and you are drawn towards it, This is also, by the way, as I said, many legends you can remember and connect. The story of Ayyappa. It's a torch lit in the mountains. People go to see this flame, which in a certain season or a certain, month, in a certain moment, this flame comes. Nobody knows that how it comes, because there is no known human phenomena. Now you can describe it through nature and many other ways, but they worship it as the symbol of Ayyappa, who is a power of Shiva. Very interestingly, born out of Shiva and Vishnu together. When Vishnu bears the Mohini Roop, since we are talking of the legend, because it's very close to us, Shiva and Mohini come together and they are to kill, of course, a demon, and that conjunction is born as Ayyappa, and he is often described as a flame in the mountains, which many of these pilgrims you will see in the southern part going to worship him. A pilgrim hand lifts in an invisible shrine. Yes.
There came the gift of a revealing hour. He saw through depths that reinterpret all, limited not now by the dull body's eyes, new found through an arch of clear discovery, this intimation of the world's delight, this wonder of the divine artist's make, carved like a nectar cup for thirsty gods, this breathing scripture of the eternal's joy, this net of sweetness, woven of aureate fire.
So this is now Ashupati suddenly, when he looks at his daughter, whom he has seen thus far with his fatherly eyes, my child, my sweet child, suddenly because of that moment, gift of a revealing hour, he sees something else. And what he sees is described here. Again, Ashupati, suddenly the seer has come out of him. I mean, even he is a seer yogi, but he's also a father. So he is to play the role of a father. And suddenly in that moment of apocalypse, he suddenly looks at his daughter, and what does he beholds? There came the gift of a revealing hour. He saw through depths that reinterpret all. This gift of a revealing hour, it reminds me of another anecdote. Mrilalini Devi, Sri Aurobindo's wife, and Sri Aurobindo's sister, Sarojini, they were sitting on mountain top in Shillong, which was Mrilalini Devi's house. I've seen her house in Shillong. She used to live there. She was born there and she lived there for a long time. So then they were sitting on the mountain, and his sister, Sri Aurobindo's sister, looks at the play of lights below. From the mountain you can see little lights glowing at night, mountains have these tires. So she says, isn't it very beautiful? So suddenly in that moment, Mrilalini Devi says, your brother's heart holds a much more beautiful city than this. Now, I look at this statement as foreseeing Auroville. Your brother's heart holds a much more beautiful city. I would say the future Auroville, or a future creation. And this is when he was in the jail. So it is not like later on when Sri Aurobindo is regarded by all as a yogi. So there are prophet hours when suddenly the same sight reveals something else to us. So this is what has come to Ashupati. And what does he see? He saw through depths that reinterpret all. So when you go in the deeper self, the whole outer thing is understood in a different light. That's what the mother says, that you people see the surface and judge. But I see the depths and what is there. That little flame in the depths. And from that she understands and the outer being. So there was a disciple here who used to drink, and someone asked the mother, why are you tolerating this man here? Now, it's not, she has said, do not drink alcohol, and there are people who have been very clearly, it can be completely a very, dark state, often it is. But for this person, she says, oh, you do not know. He took upon himself this burden for humanity. If he would have been in the Himalayas, he would have been a great yogi. Now, this applies to him. It doesn't apply to everyone. It doesn't mean that we start drinking and saying, I have taken upon myself the burden. This we have to be careful. But here the meaning that from the depths, that little flame, that's how Sri Aurobindo also says why Arjuna was chosen as a, disciple by Shri Krishna to give the Gita. He is not the best or the highest in terms of virtues, but he is the best and highest in terms of whatever skill he has. And there also people could debate it. But there is in him a flame which the Lord has seen, and he chooses a moment to reveal himself to him. So this depths that reinterprets all our outer things. We are ignorant of that, so we judge humanly. He saw through depths that reinterpret all, limited not now by the dull body's eyes that see the surfaces, new found through an arch of clear discovery, this intimation of the world's delight. Now he says, oh, she has come to announce the delight. She is delight embodied. No more just my daughter who gives me joy. She has come to give this delight to the whole world. This wonder of the divine artists make, carved like a nectar cup for thirsty gods. Even the gods are drawn to us, her. Give me please little bit of the soma which you are holding.
Yes.
Even it's difficult for the gods to find that.
Yes.
But they could come to her and drink a little bit of that soma, and her whole body is now a vessel of that delight towards which even the gods who are seeking for immortality and delight come. This breathing scripture of the eternal joy. Her body is the scripture. Look at it now, you know what level he is taking us. In every part of a body, and this is literally true. When Mother speaks about the First World War, there is a praise and she describes that each of the part of a body was symbolizing a nation. So what was different things symbolizing? Her heart was the core of the world. So the scripture, the whole scripture, the story was happening here, but manifesting somewhere outside. That's one reason why she had to go away from France to Japan. She says because it was creating lot of revolutions. France couldn't bear, when she came back after those 9 months sojourn. So she had to go away to Japan because, it was so much, all the forces were being drawn there, including the forces of darkness, which of course they continued the onslaught, but it was very difficult.
Mother would even say that a part of her body, if there was a pain in it, she knew there was something happening in New York.
Yes.
Or another country.
So, breathing scripture, what a term. I don't think there is a parallel to these words in any of the scriptures. I have read descriptions of Lord Rama, of Krishna, Shiva, and of course many others. But this description, breathing scripture, at one place he speaks of the human body as the breath-fastened frame.
Yes.
So this breathing scripture of the eternal joy, this net of sweetness, woven of aureate fire, the supramental energies have woven her bodily frame. This last line we'll read, this net of sweetness is filled with sweetness. But what is this sweetness? The supramental sweetness, which is there in a body, in a very breath.
Golden fire.
Golden fire. So we'll stop here and continue tomorrow.